Hello, fellow adventurers into the fictional realms. My name's Jada, and today we'll be talking about The Night Ends with Fire by KX Song. This book is inspired by Mulan, so it was obviously an instant read for me. This video will be a love letter to this book because it is truly great, but it will also be hate mail to every single man in here who got on my very last nerve. It's not unfounded hate. It's not hating men for the sake of hating men because that's cool sometimes. No, it's founded hate. They are the founding fathers of my hate. So yeah, let's just get right into it. We open our story with news of war circulating Chuangning. The three kingdoms are going to war and everybody's worried about it except for our main character, Mei Lin's opium addicted father. He's not worried about fighting for his country. He's not worried about duty, honor, any of that. The only thing he's worried about is that pipe. He suggests sending Mei Lin's Uncle Cho to the war in his place, just like pretending that it's him. And Mei Lin has a problem with that. So she said, he's old and he's done more for this household than you ever have. And her father didn't like that. He doesn't like that. She decided to speak out against him, and she's old enough to be married. He decides to sell her off like a bag of rice to get a dowry for her because he's basically gambled away all of their money. The debt collectors are knocking at the door every single day. She does not want to be married, and she states that. He decides a woman shouldn't open her mouth. He slaps her. We're 5 pages in. You can't be a drug addict and also be abusive. You can't be a deadbeat, a drug addict, and abusive. You have to pick one of the three. Otherwise, you're just overachieving and being useless, you know? And he threatens to sell her as a concubine if she doesn't get married. Joying, who is her stepmother, but she's more like a sister to her, she helps her prepare to meet the matchmaker. This matchmaker, I don't know what planet she's on and what star she's reading, because she decides that the best match for Mei Lin would be an old merchant who none of his wives have been able to give him a son. She says that they all die of consumption. All his wives, and we don't know how many it is, but they all die from consumption. Maybe one of them died from consumption. I believe he killed the rest. So she decides to check him out. And immediately, she witnesses him slapping around a servant girl. And this is who the matchmaker said, hey, this is the best we can do for you. Upon seeing that the matchmaker has set her up with, yet again, a man who is just as abusive as her father, if possibly not more, because he could be a murderer, she goes through this thought process. That was going to be me. I would flee father only to fall under another master. And even if I were to bear him a healthy son and earn my status in his household, even if Master Chu were to pass away, that son would one day grow up to become a man, and then he too would command me, and I would be under the whim of men for the rest of my days. No wonder my mother had chosen to give up on this world. She contemplates suicide like her mom committed suicide, but ultimately she decides that, hey, she has to think of joining her sister and her brother, younger sister and brother, Roha and Plum, and she decides to live on for them because her mother's death destroyed her. She doesn't want to destroy her family's lives like that. Very selfless. Because honestly, she definitely could have done a swanton bomb from that roof up there, and who would have blamed her with these circumstances? She's on her way home. There's this wagon that becomes unhitched and is barreling down the street. People are jumping out of the way. They're running for their lives. But there's one old man who's laying in the street. Or he not laying, but he lost his cane and fell over, and definitely would have got isekai and reincarnated as a slime if someone doesn't come to help him. So there's a man who runs out to help him. He's wearing a soldier's garb. So she believes that this man is a soldier. But from her point of view, he's not going to get to that old man in time to save the old man, get them both out the way before they both get flat Stanley. So she has to take action. She decides. the real hero of our story. And it's important to know that she trained for years under her Uncle Joe. She has mastered Kung Fu. She's practiced Qigong for years. And she also has great control of her Qi. She hops down from the roof and she grabs a large iron pole and rams it into the wheel of the wagon that is just riding down the street, ready to kill everybody. She does stop the wagon, in turn saving the old man and the soldier. So once everything settles down a little bit, they all start like gathering around this man and calling the guy that she believes to be a soldier, they call him Master Leo. And she don't know who she saved, but she decides, and while no one's paying attention to her, to just exit stage left. She decides to go down the alley behind a gambling salon. That's like going behind the alley of a bar, okay? And where are you going to find at a bar, in an alley by yourself as a woman? Of course, a drunk man. She found not only one, she found two drunk men. And they confuse her as a courtesan, even though she tells them, hey, not a prostitute, bro. Go about your business. Of course, what do? They grab her anyway, even though she says, I'm not a prostitute. At this point in time, they don't care what a woman got to say. You can be a prostitute or you cannot be a prostitute, but I'm going to war, so I'm going to need you to sleep with me. Not in the plan. Here comes Master Leo. He runs down the alley. He comes through. He's like, get your hands off of her. And that distracts the men enough that Maylene absolutely destroys the man who is holding on to her. He's done for. So she turns to Master Leo to thank him for basically coming to her rescue, and realizes that this is no regular master. This is no soldier. This is Prince Leo Sky, the seventh son of the Anlai warlord, which is, Anlai is where she lives. And she's like, oh my God, Your Highness, I didn't recognize you. Thank you so much for saving me. And Prince Leo, you can tell, is immediately like taken with her. It seems like you had the situation handled yourself. If only my men riding out to war tomorrow could be half as fast and clever as you. She blushes. And half as lovely. Immediately, Prince Leo was spitting his game, and half as lovely. Immediately. So he offers her a ride home, and that one horse ride, I'm honestly convinced they're going to be in love. They're going to be married. They should be in love. They should be married. Kiss, kiss, fall in love. And Prince Leo reveals he's very much not a tight-lipped prince. Like, he's revealing a lot to his random lady that he just met. If she was a spy, state secrets are gone. The kingdom is burning. Thank you, Prince Leo. But he reveals that a seer from the south comes and tells his father, who is the online warlord, that a spirit will spell the ruin, the demise basically of him and of Anlai. He makes it an imperial decree that as an imperial commander that he has the heavens mandate, and that the only religion that can be acknowledged and worshipped is worship of him, because somehow he's decided that he's God. Like, literally, you're a warlord. You conquered land and gave yourself a position of power, and somehow in his mind that equates to him being God. Like, delusional, right? But when delusional people get to rule over you, everyone has to follow and feed into your delusion. So they can't even give offerings to their ancestors. They can't mention spirits. They can't practice any other religion. It's illegal. They consider anything like spirit related black magic, right? Prince Leo he's obviously alluded to the fact that he wants to see her after the war. Like, he would like to continue in some capacity with her, in so many words. But when they get home, Joying, she lets it slip that, hey, Maylene has started receiving her dowry, and Prince Leo is crushed, absolutely shattered. He said, my love, my boo, what about me and you? But he takes his leave, and that night Maylene really can't sleep. She still has his words right on the right in her mind of, if only my men were as like fast and clever as you. And she decides in that moment she can be a man. Technically, she could be a man and enlist in the war. She has to take hold of her own destiny. She thinks she'll die regardless, and she would rather die doing something for herself, being free, being strong, than to die under the rule of another man. So before she leaves, she decides to go to Joying, who again she's very close with, and Joying tries to convince her not to go. She's really like upset because if she gets caught, she will be executed. Like a woman cannot pretend to be a man, run away from all her duties, and go into the army. Maylene tells her like, hey, she has to paint her the picture of, hey, I know I'm going to go out there and die, basically, but I can't live like this any longer. Enjoying, still trying to convince her not to go, she says, even if you survived a war, do you think they'll let you live? They would never let a woman get away with something like this. Maylene, something like what? She said they would never let a woman hold on to power. Maylene has to let her know, like, hey, she doesn't have any big aspirations. Once again, she just wants a few more months of freedom. So eventually Joying is convinced, and she helps her disguise herself as a man. And before she goes, she also gives her a jade pendant that her mother left to her. She left some really, really weird instructions saying like, hey, give this to Maylene when she's ready to die. Give this to Maylene when she's ready to die. When her mother killed herself. In tiny writing on the jade, it says Qinglong, the Azure Dragon. Joying gives her the idea to enlist into the army as her father's illegitimate son. She enlists in the army under the false name of Hyren, and she's assigned to Company 7, which is coincidentally, or is it a coincidence, or is it fate? It's commanded by Prince Leo, the 7th son of the online warlord, who she met yesterday. And a few words from him changed her destiny. So day one, she makes friends with Sparrow, he's a loudmouth. He's very, very friendly, which really gets him by through most of the story. He's like a personality hire. She gets close to him, and she becomes very close also to Jilong. He's the strongest soldier in their platoon. He's the best sword fighter, the best archer. He's everything that any soldier would want to be. Like, that's the man to be right there. She grows very close to him, even though they have kind of frenemies, I would say, because even though she goes into the army with this mindset of, hey, I'm not going to make it, I just want some freedom, I want to make choices for myself, over time she decides that she needs to prove herself, she needs to prove that she belongs, and she wants to be the best. So her and Jilong a lot of the time end up like competing, but they always have each other's back. And Jilong is low-key one of my 2 favorite characters from this book. So she comes close to Sparrow, Jilong, and also obviously Prince Sky. So while training in the army, she overcomes a lot of her weaknesses and trains hard with the goal of being the best. She entered the army obviously being very far behind her male counterparts in terms of physical strength. She had never even used a sword, even though she is skilled with a staff. So she had to work doubly as hard, and she started training nightly by herself until Prince Liu was watching her like a creep in the night. He was watching her train by herself and eventually joins her and starts giving her advice and coaching her. He helps her with her sword fighting, with her archery, and she helps him she teaches him how to use a staff. And in those nightly training sessions, just the 2 of them together, in those nightly training sessions, they develop like a close bond, a close friendship built on like trust and just easy flowing conversation. And she also meets Lieutenant Fang, who is man number 2 that I cannot stand. And I can't stand him because early on, Maylene does admit to stealing his iron armlet, which is a family heirloom, but it was so very obvious that Maylene didn't steal it. It was actually Sparrow, and Sparrow would not have stolen his armlet if Lieutenant Fang was not being... He was degrading Southerners, which Sparrow is. And so Sparrow decided to take revenge by stealing his armlet. Lieutenant Fang, hours later, he discovers it's been stolen, and he decides that everybody needs to strip so he can find this armlet. But Maylene, being a woman, she can't have her secret exposed unless she want to get executed, which I feel like isn't the goal. I don't think she planned to die on day one. So she admits that she stole this armlet, and she is punished, but Lieutenant Fong just decides to make her life so much harder from that day forward. Every chance he gets, he wants to embarrass her, even when she has done things that are commendable in her army time. He wants to flip it around, turn it around, and eventually he tries to send her to her death, but we'll get to that in a moment. After she inherits the pendant from her mother, she does start to hear a voice in her ear, which she tries to gaslight herself a lot of the time to believe that she's hearing things. She thinks she might be catching the madness that her mom had. She doesn't connect the dots, but it is very obviously the dragon Qinglong talking to her. And she doesn't connect those dots until she literally sees the dragon. She has a dream, or a vision, some might say. She drew her sword as her attacker whirled at her, their blades decisive and furious. Their shared hatred was evident in their thrusts and parries. They were fighting to kill. And as the girl lost her sword and the boy brought his down to her throat, I finally caught sight of his face. Leo Sky. Crazy work. Crazy work. This made me wonder if this is a vision of the future. Like, on one hand, this could be a vision of the future of them turning into bitter rivals, or this is Qinglong manipulating her. I'm still not sure which is the truth. Possibly this, at the time, this is him manipulating her to not trust Prince Sky. But honestly, she just brushes it off as a dream. And that's one of her main things, like one of her main problems is she brushed too much that was like very important. She took it and just set it to the side and kind of just buried her head into the sand. I'm not holding it against her character really, because I think the author did a great job of giving us this flawed character, but she's also very young. Like, she's 18. She hasn't seen much of the world other than these ideas that her father implanted into her mind. She learned a lot from like other people like Joy Ying and her Uncle Cho, but she also was very sheltered. So I feel a lot of the mistakes that she did make in this book were just coming from the point that she is very young and she's still learning. She is also conditioned by her environment. Like, she grows up in online, you can't believe in black magic, so a lot of the things that should have been red flags for her kind of just fly over her head. She enters the spirit realm and finally meets Qinglong, who, before this, she still did not know that this was the dragon. That was kind of crazy to me, but again, I'm letting it slide. I'm letting it slide because I love her. She was trying her best with what she had. But she meets Qinglong in all of his dragon-like glory. The might of the sea is yours. The dragon says, "You desire me, hungry one. I only answered your call. Your greed is unending. An ocean's hunger." Ooh! I don't know. Something about that scene really gets me. Like, it really gets me. I do think that the spirit seals choose you, and he did choose her because of her greed, as he called it. To me, when I look at it for what it is, it's not really greed. It's just her wanting more than would have been given to her in life as a woman. At this point in time, women have very few choices. They're not their own person. They basically belong to men, and they're only supposed to be like for children and homemaking. And she just wanted more for herself. So he would call her greedy. And I think really that's ambitious. Qinglong tells her that Zhu Chui's seal is close to being found and that she needs to learn to harness her powers if she wants them to win the war, basically. But still, coming from online and how they treat black magic, well, they call it black magic, how they treat any kind of spirit magic, she decides that the best thing for her is conformity. So she ignores this dragon for so long. Honestly, in my opinion, for too long. She decides that she needs to be normal and fit in, which honestly to me is insane. If I discovered I had the might of the sea behind me, I would be insufferable. I would think I was the next Percy Jackson and nobody could tell me anything. Even when her life ends up being on the line, she does not use the powers that's afforded to her. So they were marching to Jimming, and one night while Maylene is training alone, she discovers that bandits are ambushing them. She alerts Sky and he mobilizes the troops. And then she saves Sky's life again. Again. When a wagon explodes, she dives and saves them. Give her a key to the city and also a medal. A medal of valor. She deserves it. So her and Sky do split up. Sky goes to check on his brother Winter, and Maylene decides to listen to... She finally listens to Qinglong, and he told her to use her head. What would these bandits be attacking for? Like, what are they after? So she decides to go to the armory. She discovers that the bandits aren't even stealing the weapons, which is what she thought they were going for. The only thing that they're stealing is iron. They're not stealing the swords. They're not stealing the spears. They're not stealing the arrows. The only thing that they take is like the iron axes, the iron arrowheads, like anything that has iron, they're taking it. To her, that's weird because they are already coming from a poor kingdom. They can't afford weapons, so they should be taking everything. She does get discovered by the bandits. She gets discovered and surrounded. Honestly, this could be the end. Call upon Qinglong. No, she decides to try to sword fight them. Loses immediately. Because it's over a dozen bandits. So really, it's not her fault. Here, right into the rescue, who is it? Always reliable. The true GOAT is Zilong. No one's doing it like Zilong. He comes through, saves her life. She sees a bandit running off into the woods and decides to pursue him. She catches up to him and interrogates him under threat of bodily harm. She learns that they were sent by a man named Sima to take all their iron. They don't want more iron. They just want to get rid of the iron. And they're also there for the prince because he is quote unquote touched, which means he has like a spirit affinity. And she assumes that that's Sky because the prince in her mind, her prince, my man, is Prince Sky. So that's all the information that she gets before the bandit attacks her with a knife and gets the upper hand. She almost dies again before she calls upon the dragon's power. She finally called upon his power. You're a demigod. Use your powers, Percy Jackson. This scene was absolutely insane when she finally called upon the powers. The water droplets condensed in the air and merged, then flew into his mouth, choking him. I started in alarm, watching as his eyes rolled back in his head. Foam rose from his lips until he turned limp and finally went still. He drowned. She drowned him. Absolutely insane work. She drowned him with a few droplets of water. Imagine what she could do if she went to battle, like in a storm. She could take out a whole army, like just with raindrops. That's like overpowered. Obviously, she just drowned a man, but she doesn't have time to think about that. Her man, her prince, is in trouble. According to her. She has to go save him. So she realizes that the man that she drowned is wearing deck shoes, and that gives her the idea that they came by boat to come ambush them. So she heads to the ocean, and when she reaches the sea, she sees that they don't have Prince Sky held captive. They have his brother Winter, and he is trying to bargain with them for them to take him instead. He said, "No, not my brother." He wanted to have his Katniss moment, which honestly, he's so real for that, because if it was my brothers, they would have just had to figure it out. Okay? But he's trying to bargain with them, tell them, take me instead. And they tell him that Chancellor Sima does not want him. They want his brother. That's right. The Sima that they kept talking about, who sent them to steal all their iron and steal their prince, is the Chancellor of Zimming. Maylin has one singular arrow left. And despite her training with Sky, she is no Zilong. She is still not the best shot. But she says, I'm not throwing away my shot. See, yeah, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my Shot. It's time to take a shot. She takes a shot, aiming for the bandit's neck, and she hits him in the thigh. So she did try. An effort was made. She definitely needs to get back to target practice because the thigh is miles from the neck. Despite her not finishing the job, it gives Sky the distraction that he needs to finish off the guy that's holding his brother captive, and it just devolves into this battle. Everyone, Sky, their army, they're taking out the bandits because how dare you come and try to take one of ours. The next day, Maylene learns from Zilong that Sky has commended her for her valor in front of the whole General Council. He said,
"That's my girlfriend. She saved all of y'all last night."
Obviously not. He still didn't know she's a woman. But that's how it went in my head. And then Lieutenant Fong, her number one hater, decides to flip out and accuse her of being a black magic practitioner. Which, he isn't wrong, but he don't know that. He does not know. He just can't let her have her moment. And that's why, another reason, I cannot stand him. Just be quiet. You're not doing nothing. You're not doing nothing but following orders. She's out here paving a path, saving princes left and right. He's still hung up on that armlet from months ago. Still an idiot because it was Sparrow. And Sky low-key peeped that it was Arrow. She awakes from sleep that night to a soft voice saying, "Maylin, I do not wish for you to repeat my mistakes." And she recognizes her mother's voice, which she follows into the spirit realm. Her mother says, "Maylin, mark my words, never trust a dragon. He will use you just as he uses each of us. And if you let him in, he will never let you go." After that conversation, I definitely would have gotten rid of that jade. I would have threw it into the sun. Okay, because how is your mother, who is dead, speaking to you? She's telling you not to trust this dragon. And she had this jade before you. How did she die from drowning when Qing Long has the power of the sea? She wasted away and killed herself. If Qilong was trustworthy, then why wasn't her fate different? She leaves the spirit realm and encounters a man with golden eyes who calls her Haiyang, one of the sea, which would make him Taiyang, one of the sun. He had retrieved Zhu Chui's seal earlier that day, and he commands her with Zhu Chui's power, and she has no choice but to follow his command. At this point, I will either be ready to fight this man or run away. Because what do you mean you commanded me to speak? And I had no choice but to answer you. But no, she doesn't run. Because there were no red flags here. She decides to take this man's hand and they enter his memories. In his memories, she sees a tragic story. His twin dies when he was young. He has a childhood friend that he marries at 18. And by the time they're 19, they have this daughter. And he loves them both very much. And then the previous war comes. And he's not worried about this war. He is so caught up in his bubble of happiness with his wife and his child. He thinks that this happiness will last. He's not a soldier, so he's not worried about battle or fighting. And yet that war comes to him. A general gives him a disfiguring scar. Our words, his wife right in front of him, and then kills his wife and his daughter. I kid you not. This part, it gets me. This part makes my eyes sting. If you're gonna kill people, okay. It's a war, you're a general. I don't know why you're killing civilians. But okay, let's just say okay, you're at war, you're killing folks. Why are you doing all that extra? The extra bit with his wife, absolutely unnecessary. You're just disgusting. You're actually a criminal. You're not worried about fighting for no country. You're just a criminal and you're hiding your crimes behind war. And then he doesn't even kill Taiyang. He leaves him there to suffer and grieve his family alone for years. And his one purpose in life becomes vengeance on this general. Like he wants to see this general ruined. I want to see the general ruin. I want to see this general become a pile of ashes. He hungered for that general's ruin year after year as he searched for a key to enter the spirit realm. Just like Qinglong feeds off of greed, Zuchue, the phoenix spirit, feeds off of vengeance and rage. And he had plenty of rage and a deep-seated need for vengeance. But people driven by vengeance are always unhinged. Like, they spiral and destroy everything around them. So even at this point in the book, I did not trust him. They surface from his memories and he offers to train her, but he says that she will have to leave with him. She does not want to go with him. Like, her loyalty is to Sky. Not even to Online, her loyalty is to Sky. They ready for battle against the Zimming forces at the Dion River, and this is why I really cannot stand Lieutenant Fang. Like, there was many a reason, but this is where he tries to send her to her death. So he can't let go of the fact that she has proven herself multiple times during her time in the army. So he decides that he's going to send her to the Vanguard. Now, the Vanguard, they know it's going to be a massacre. He doesn't even have a strategic reason to have put her into this Vanguard. He's just sending her to her death. He's just being vindictive. And that's why I can't stand him. He lets his emotions dictate his actions. How are you going to be a decorated general and you're playing these petty games? He doesn't plan to send her whole squad. He only plans to send her for being a commendable soldier. But Zilong decides that they're not going to let her go into the Vanguard alone and possibly die. All for one and one for all. All of 12th squad is going to go with her. Here's where you know that Lieutenant Fang knows that he messed up. Because when Zilong offers for everybody to go with her, his entire face turns gray cast, as Meilin put it. And why else would he look like that if he wasn't feeling guilty? The battle at Dion River is an absolute crap show, as you can guess. The river it's a raging river. It runs out into the sea and it's freaking storming. Honestly, perfect conditions for her to draw on Zilong's power, but does she? Absolutely not. And she'll pay for it. So they're getting absolutely destroyed by these arrows and the cannons. And also the freaking currents. They're being obliterated. The people in the Vanguard. Until Zilong, the man that he is, he finds a safer route across the river. And everybody begins to follow him. They finally make it onto the riverbank. Meilin is killing people left and right and left. They take out a good amount of the archers and see their reinforcements riding across the river towards them, led by Sky, of course. They're winning, guys. This is their time. The battle's over. Or not. What could possibly go wrong? A huge raging fire. A huge fire amidst a downpour spreads out far and wide, so tall that it looks like a wall of fire. This huge wall of fire produces a thick mist that greatly reduces their visibility. Meilin and Zilong end up fighting back to back, and it's freaking epic. So epic that the other soldiers get scared. They're shaking in their custom baby sealskin leather boots. They give them a wide berth. So there's this clear circle around them, which obviously draws the eyes of an archer. The archer shoots Zilong. It should have been Lieutenant Fang. If anybody got shot, it should have been Lieutenant Fang. They shoot Zilong. He falls into the water. Meilin is pushed into the water. To Meilin, it looks like he was hit in the shoulder with his arrow, but she really cannot tell with him dang near drowning in the river. And her also dang near drowning. At this point, I had to close the book because I said, the author is playing with me. There is no way that Zilong is the best archer that they have. The best swordsman. He's the best. And you're going to kill my goat? You're going to kill Zilong. They got caught in a whirlpool and it's all over at this point. Zilong is a pincushion. They're getting tossed around in the waves. Meilin finally is able to grab a branch. She gives it to Zilong because it can't hold both of their weight. And she grabs a thinner branch. What could possibly go wrong? Obviously, this branch is breaking. It snaps. And Jilong's like, Ren, watch out! She freaking sails over a waterfall. The end. That's the end of the book. She's dead. They both drowned in the river. After going over the waterfall, Jinglong summons her into the spirit realm. She asks Jinglong about Jilong, and he tells her cold-heartedly, straightforward, he's dead and it's your fault. Cut the cameras. Take me out. I'm done. Cut the show. Ugh. He tells her that Jilong is dead and that 10,000 men will be dead before the end of the day. I gave you an ocean of might, and you chose a drop of rain instead. I can't use spirit power. My platoon, they turn against you. Your platoon is dead. I'm sorry. Your platoon is dead. This is not a war of men. And if you insist on fighting as a common foot soldier, then you may rejoice in your upstanding scruples and embrace the ashes of all that you hold dear. He kinda ate right there. Jilong did not have to die. They did not have to lose that battle. They were at a river in a downpour. But a common theme has been never trust a dragon. We just talked about her mom coming and telling her, girl, don't trust him. He gonna use you. So even though she could have saved Jilong and all of her platoon and maybe 10,000 men, I don't really fault her for not using it. I want to fault her for not using it because Jilong is dead, but I do understand why she did not. She finally connects the dots that Taeyong and Chancellor Sima are one and the same. She learns that Sima's spirit jade was stolen, fractured into 3 pieces, and cast into the sea only 2 days after he retrieved it. So the fire that he spread at the Jian River that killed all them people in my gold Jilong, it was only achieved with a fraction of his power. If he had had that whole spirit jade, they could have kissed their army goodbye. Jilong convinces Meilin that she needs to get the other 2 pieces, retrieve the other 2 pieces, and give them to him, to Jilong. Or Anlai and everyone that she loves will burn. At this point, Jilong manipulates her so thoroughly by playing on her greatest fears. He shows her one vision where she can be herself. She's a woman. She has a sword out in the open. Sky is there. Sparrow's there. They're surrounded by her family. And her and Sky are obviously together. And then in another vision, he shows her family dying in a fire, Sky being killed by Sima, and her being stripped naked and imprisoned in a cage underneath the Imperial Palace. He tells her that this second vision is what will happen if she doesn't collect the pieces of Zhu Chui's seal and give them to her and change the fate of Anlai. He tells her that if she retrieves Sima Yi's Jade seal, then she can change the fate of the 3 kingdoms. So at this point, after seeing these two greatly contrasting visions, she decides to accept Jilong's power. Even though up until this point, the whole time she's been focused on conformity. She was manipulated, and she does not know that she was manipulated by this dragon. Those 2 visions, there was no guarantee that either one of them would come to fruition, but she just takes him at his word because she needed somebody to trust. After going over the waterfall, it takes her 3 days to return to her army. By the time she returns, she is severely injured and delirious, and she stumbles across Sky, because who else? Training alone at night. And tending to her wounds, he discovers that she is a woman. Shocker. And taking her clothes off to look at her wounds, he sees what other than a she's the man type scene. He takes care of her while she's mostly unconscious for 10 days and doesn't tell anyone that she's a woman. While she is unconscious, she enters the spirit realm again and learns that Sima can sense his jade pieces. So he's already set out to retrieve the second piece of the jade and she learns the location from his mind. She finally awakens from her dang near comatose state and reunites with her platoon, who thought she was dead. Pretty much all of Squad 12 is dead. She tries to have a conversation with Sky, trying to tell him about Simma's Jade, but he's not even listening. He's so caught up in the fact that she's a woman, she shouldn't be in the army, she needs to go home. He tells her that her emotions are getting the best of her during their conversation, and of course that enrages her, and she's like, fight me then. If I gotta go home because I'm a woman, fight me. They fight and Sky wins. Eventually they cooled down and they were able to talk about the Jade. Obviously Maylin has to tell him some lies about how she found out about this Jade, and they assemble a team of her, Sky's personal guard, Tao, and Sparrow. And why is Sparrow coming, you ask? What has he done that's notable in this whole time? Really nothing. Like I said, he's a personality hire. She's like, Sparrow's my ride or die. She starts to have thoughts that I truly believe are a mixture of her own greed and ambition and also manipulation from Qinglong. Like during an argument with Sky, even now, thoughts of Zhu Chui's seal swam in my mind. Retrieve the Jade. This goal superseded any of Sky's, any of An Lai's. She thinks, what if I were commander of this army instead of you? What gives her even the thought in her mind that she could command an army? Like, she's a great soldier. Yes, she is. But she's also 18. And even though Sky is only like 19, he was raised for this as the prince. What makes you think in your mind that you can command this army? You just joined the army like 3 months ago. Slow your roll. But again, I think that that's Qinglong, because otherwise that's just an outrageous thought to have, and honestly delusional. And then in another argument with Sky, she thinks, maybe if I were commander, you would finally see me as your equal. Again, I do think she's ambitious and has drive and wants more for herself, but the thought of I could be commander, that to me that felt like Qinglong. To me, there's a sense of increasing suspense and danger as she accepts the dragon, and her thoughts and ambitions and his thoughts become more and more entwined until it's really hard to separate what's her and what's him. In their search for the second piece of the Jade, they visit a tavern in which Maylin, disguised as Ren, meets a man that she describes as the most beautiful man she's ever seen. And I'm like, hello? Sky is right there. She describes him as smelling of jasmine and cedar, the same scents present in Simma's memory after his Jade was stolen. And he introduces himself as Lei. They have this conversation where they kind of just dancing around each other, dancing around the truth. They tell each other a bunch of lies, and he alludes to the fact that he knows that they're searching for the spirit Jade. That night, Maylin has a dream, and she knows where the second piece is. So her and her companions head out to grab the Jade before Simma can. She does retrieve it after risking her life, but right after she retrieves it, they're surrounded by Jiming soldiers led by the one and only Mr. Worldwide Handsome, Lei. This is where it's all downhill. They're taken captive, chained in iron. Maylin is basically rendered powerless because iron is the weakness to spirit mediums. It's even worse because Chancellor Simma shows up, and it's obvious to us as the readers that Lei is the one who stole Simma's Jade, broke it, and tossed it into the sea, which Maylin does not realize until dang near the end of the book. Simma uses compulsion to make Lei give him the piece of spirit Jade that they just took from Maylin, and he joins the two pieces of the Jade together and literally sets the ocean on fire. They say thousands of flames danced across the surface of the ocean. At this point, I'm scared. I'm shaking in my custom steel baby skin leather boots. It's looking like the vision where her family dies in that fire is going to come true. we should have been more proactive. After his little light show, Simba orders for Sky to be taken and the rest of them to be killed. But as Lei has shown, he doesn't listen to anyone and he decides to take them prisoner instead. Cue the prisoner arc. Absolutely crazy arc where she feels more powerless than ever. She makes a huge sacrifice for her friends and she low-key gets Stockholm Syndrome. This is the end of part 1 of this video. I was a bit long-winded, so I didn't want the video to be crazy long, so check out part 2 if you would like to.